A strong coastal storm system is forecast to develop and then bring impacts along areas of the eastern seaboard into this weekend into early next week. Here to get very detailed on all that, we'll compare model guidance, talk about impacts. We'll even show you some fancy graphics from the National Weather Service and their discussions on this storm for local areas that could see those impacts. After that, we'll speak a little bit on Tropical Storm Jerry. We won't spend a whole lot of time on that, but this is forecast to become a hurricane. It's in a strengthening phase right now. Could bring impacts to areas of the Leeward Islands as we move over the next 24 hours or so. After that, we'll pretty much be done. We're not going to give you a daily forecast in this morning's video just because there's not a whole lot going on, and I want to spend a lot of time on this coastal storm system. But do stay tuned for the end if you want to. I got you a Bible devotion, and we'll speak in scripture a little bit. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So let's circle a couple things on here. That's not the color we want to use. We want to use this color. So now that we got that taken care of, that is Tropical Storm Jerry. It is blowing up some very intense convection right now, indicated by the colors you see in the black and white. This is higher cloud tops, which means we have colder cloud tops, which means we have these taller updrafts, stronger storms, which means this system is basically strengthening. Anything else out there to really mention? Well, we do have some energy now getting going off the southeast and mid-Atlantic coastline. This is because of a cold front that is now off the eastern seaboard. This will tap into some energy. Some energy will phase together from the northern stream, and this will pop off some sort of low pressure right into here, and then it'll have an opportunity to strengthen and maybe move up the eastern seaboard. There's still some question marks on whether this thing's going to kind of stall out, spin in one general area, maybe come back south. How far north is it going to get at first? Still some questions, but we're starting to get more confident on the path of this. Anything else? The Gulf is quiet, the Caribbean is quiet, and way out here in the Atlantic is pretty quiet. So just kind of wanted to show you all the pieces of the puzzle out here in the Atlantic first. Latest from the National Hurricane Center before we get very detailed on this coastal low. We do have Jerry, 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm. We have a new invest way up here in the northern Atlantic, but we're not even going to speak on it, but that is wild how we do have that. And you can see a little bit of a spin with this right here. So pretty crazy to see on satellite, but not really worth talking about at all. And then sort of the leftovers of this area of interest we had that never developed. This has now moved into areas of Mexico now. So moving past that, let's speak on this coastal low that is now in pretty much our forecast across areas of the eastern U.S. We need to get very detailed on this. So latest from the Euro, we're going to start this off for this evening. So this is right out ahead of us. Moisture is already going to begin brewing, if you will, off the coast of the southeast. You can see this is indicated by the greens and the splashes of yellow, orange, and red. This is convection, shower, and storm activity. As we get into tomorrow morning, you're going to see this on radar right off the coastline of South Carolina and southeast North Carolina. Even some showers, maybe even some heavy rain starting to move inland. But this is getting into tomorrow morning. It's the same thing with Florida too. Don't want to ignore you guys. We're going to have a lot of activity really along and just really offshore. But as we're starting to move into tomorrow afternoon, that's when I think things could get a little bit dicey. We're going to start to get a stiff breeze, an onshore breeze right up against the Carolina coastline, showers and storms making its way inland. As far as storms, I'm not talking about like tornadoes or just severe thunderstorms, just more of tropical downpours, some rumbles of thunder. But it's going to feel like, a tropical system is moving in. The only thing that it won't feel like it with, I would say, is it's going to really lack a true tropical air mass because And that makes sense because this is really not tropical. We got a lot of dry, cool air around. So this is really helping to not make this develop a real true warm and moist core to the system. It's more so a nor'easter. In fact, it really is. But as we start to get into tomorrow evening, you can see some of this heavy stuff begin to push up against the Carolina coastline, even the Georgia coastline. And as we start to move into Saturday morning, next 48 hours or so, a lot of heavy stuff starts to move right up against the Outer Banks, just the eastern sections of North Carolina, the PD of South Carolina, Grand Strand, even getting some gusty winds, some heavy rain. And really, I think tomorrow afternoon, this is where things can really go downhill. Low pressure, maybe center of low is way down here still. But you got to remember, you're going to be getting a flow, your own color, come on, a flow around this low like this. Okay, so this is going to be shoving up all this basically heavy rain right into the eastern sections of North Carolina. It's going to be bringing just a lot of water, and we're going to get beach erosion, maybe even a little bit of some storm surge. And I hate to say it, but we're probably going to lose some of these older houses that are really close to the coastline. Once again, we're probably going to start to get a lot of video out of this area, probably starting Saturday, and it stinks, but this one looks to be honestly the worst that we've seen probably all hurricane season. And this really isn't tropical, and I think that's why people aren't taking this as serious, because it's not going to end up taking a name. The next name is Karen. This will not end up taking Karen, more than likely, unless this thing gets a trick up its sleeve and develops a real true tropical nature with it. I doubt it. Saturday afternoon, look at all this convection just ramming right into the eastern sections of North Carolina. And this low pressure sort of stalls out. It doesn't really eject up the coastline and just spins around, and then it kind of relocates. So you can tell model guys is just a little confused on what happens here. Still getting some wraparound moisture down here, and then we kind of move up the coastline, and we start to move into Sunday. Look at this big plume of moisture surging north pretty fast. We're going to get some strong winds up against the mid-Atlantic coastline. When I say mid-Atlantic coastline, I'm talking about like Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, and then getting into Long Island. So southern New England, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. Look at all this rain. We're going to get some gusty winds embedded in this, maybe some isolated power outages. And then we start to get into Sunday evening, and then we get into Monday, and we got a 997 low just off the southern coastline of New Jersey. And just a lot of action just spinning around. This low pressure actually gets slung into the mid-Atlantic and then kind of comes back off the shoreline and moves over the open waters again. So it's a long duration event. Now we look at the latest GFS. What does it show? And same thing, we'll start off tomorrow morning, and then we get into tomorrow afternoon, evening. Really, this is later in the evening, like overnight, honestly, tomorrow night. It doesn't show as much moisture as the Euro does getting inland until we get into Saturday. And then that's when we get, once again, a lot of heavy action. This is going to feel like an all-out tropical storm across eastern areas of North Carolina, especially the further east you get, obviously closer to the coastline. I mean, look at this area between Wilmington and just the Outer Banks, getting a ton of convective activity slung into your area. This is going to be some strong winds embedded in this. I mean, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts, and you got a 998 millibar low based off the GFS run Saturday evening just off the coastline. And I mean, yeah, this is going to bring some issues to the Outer Banks. I mean, this is late Saturday night and a Sunday morning. I mean, you got just a sub 1,000 millibar low just off the Outer Banks coastline. And then this, jumps up the coastline, and we kind of go up to the northeast here. And this is getting into Sunday midday. Look at this big push of moisture going right into the mid-Atlantic coastline, southern New England, embedded strong winds with this, beach erosion, maybe a little bit of water, storm surge getting pushed up against some of these coastlines. And this is just going to feel like a straight nor'easter. And then we get into Monday morning, you got this 995 low right off the New Jersey coastline. Once again, it kind of spins around, and by Tuesday, it's heading on out. And then we'll take a broad look at the Euro AI model. This is more of a nor'easter track here. So we get into Saturday evening, some impacts into the eastern Carolinas, and then we get into Sunday evening. Big push of moisture well out ahead of this actual center of low pressure. Could be just a huge area of just lower pressure off the eastern seaboard. And then this thing sort of spins around kind of like your classic nor'easter just off the New Jersey and southern New England coastline as we're getting into Monday night, Tuesday morning, and then spins on away. So another thing I'll show you here is the latest HRRR model. You can see it as we're getting into tomorrow morning. A lot of moisture, heavy rain activity. So this is kind of a mesoscale model, right? Off the Carolina coastline. And this is gradually, as we're getting into tomorrow evening, kind of pushing a lot of this action right into the Carolina coastline. It's actually getting some moisture all the way back into central South Carolina. And we'll see how this behaves. The big question is how west does this moisture get? A lot of people have been asking me questions. What about Charlotte, Columbia, Rock Hill, Greensboro? A stiff breeze, maybe some like mist, light rain, kind of a spooky evening tomorrow night, if you will. Spooky October evening. It's going to be a good night just to watch some movies, stay in, order some pizza for certain areas of the Carolinas for sure tomorrow night. Just a classic night for that. As far as rainfall, closer look at here at South Carolina, Georgia. You can tell there is a tight gradient with the rainfall, but I could see this inching a little bit further west. But the South Carolina coastline, good for around an inch, a little over, a little under, right? Now, I want to take a closer look at some of these areas, but it graphical wise, it doesn't show up good on the screen, but you can tell the areas are going to get rain, right into here, right? So the further east you get tucked in, the more you get closer to that 3 to 4 to 5 inches of rain. You get into these red areas, that's more so 2-3 inches of rain. So, just taking a closer look at some of these areas, I would say. And what you doing here? There we go. Charleston, inch. We can go back down here. Jacksonville, maybe 1.5 inches over the next. Let's do the next 1 to 7 days here. Charleston, 1 inch. You head on up to Myrtle Beach, around 1/2 inch of rain. But you get on out here into, Carolina Beach, Wilmington. 1 to 2 inches of rain. But then we start to get out towards, I think they call it Beaufort, out here. 3 inches in South Carolina's Beaufort. Emerald Isles, maybe 2 inches of rain. And, you can see how it begins to cut off. Like Raleigh, not hardly much at all. But Greenville, maybe 1 inch of rain. But you get out to the Outer Banks. These guys, 2, 3, 4 inches of rain. And then this is the tricky area up here, I think. Maryland, you guys, Salisbury, 3 to 4 inches of rain. Washington, D.C. could get around 2 inches. Then the Jersey shoreline, anywhere from 2, 3 inches of rain. New York City itself, 2 inches, and then southeast sections of Mass and Rhode Island, maybe around 3 inches of rain. Could get a big push of moisture up into these areas. So Connecticut, 2 inches. So as far as wind speeds, this is tricky, guys. The GFS is certainly a scenario we don't want to see, but from the Outer Banks up into the Tidewater, Delmarva, Jersey Shore, Long Island, southern New England, you could get scattered 40 to as much as 55 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. For whatever reason, the Euro was not coming in, and it still is not coming in. So I can't show you that. I don't know what's going on with the Euro. It doesn't even have the regular miles per hour, so I don't know why it hasn't came in. But officially the National Weather Service forecast through, and this only goes out through Saturday evening, has only a forecast high-end amount of a 35, 40 mile per hour wind gusts in the Outer Banks, but I think it could be stronger than that for sure. And the reason you're not seeing much up here is because it only goes out to Saturday evening. So here's some graphics, and we're going to start south and north, go south to the north. This is National Weather Service out of Charleston. Listen, watch out. This won't be a landfalling tropical system, but if you want to pause this, if you want, there's a discussion here. Coastal watch. I think that's a typo. Coastal flood watch is in effect. Funny typo there. And then we head on up to the National Weather Service, and there's nothing out of Wilmington. So if you think, Mitch, why are you skipping Wilmington? They haven't posted anything. Remember, I told you that yesterday. Some people are commenting saying, maybe it's because of the government shutdown. I don't know. I'm not going to speak on that. But anyways, this is the National Weather Service out of Moorhead. This was updated last night. This is forecast max wind gust. It doesn't look that bad, honestly. So you compare this with actual model guidance, could get a 40, 45 mile per hour wind gust out in some of these areas. But it doesn't look all that bad. Here's another discussion about rip currents. So if you want to pause this, of course, we're going to have really bad rip currents. Definitely don't go out there and swim or anything like that. And then here's another graphic that was a couple hours prior and kind of the timeline. And I think that this will be tweaked a little bit. But if you live in some of these areas, you can pause this screen if you want. And then coastal flooding late week, talking about this weekend and anything else. There's a couple other things too. Now, I want to show you a discussion. I'm sure Ethan does not mind me sharing this, especially if I give him credit. I think most people in North Carolina that follow the weather know about North Carolina Weather Authority. And Ethan runs a fantastic site. He has developed an awesome, respected, one heck of a respected profile as far as an account with the weather. But I think he issued a fantastic graphic. I think he's doing a great job trying to keep people aware, trying to get people to take this serious. But here's a graphic that he took his time to make. If y'all want to check this out and pause this, I'm not going to read it word for word, but I'm sure he'll make an updated version of this probably sometime today. But he focuses in on North Carolina, and here's some more things about areas a little bit further south if you want to stop it and pause the screen there and read that. And, you know, and I love this graphic, and I think this is spot on. And this is a little bit more than what the National Weather Service is forecasting, but I do think we could get more. You know, when you go back and look at this, I just think that I think we could get stronger winds in this, but maybe not. But this is forecast wind gusts that he's calling for. So, and anything else? And as far as rainfall, yeah, I mean, I would agree with this. So pause the screen there if you need to go back, tweak it a little bit. National Weather Service out of Wakefield, Virginia. Now, this graphic comes up blurry. This part really doesn't. But these little areas right here, what this is, the coastal flood risk. And it is major across areas of Norfolk, Virginia Beach. I mean, it's legitimate, guys. So take this serious. And the wind threat in some of these areas, like well south of Okomack, you know, it is a significant wind risk. And this was updated this morning. So I hate this is kind of blurry. I don't know why the graphics are coming up blurry. But then we head on up the road to New York City. They got a graphic basically between, you know, Southeast Virginia and New York City. Nobody's posted any graphics. So I don't really have anything to show you guys in New Jersey and, you know, the DC area. So I apologize. But this is chances to see wind gusts over 40 miles per hour. This was updated yesterday afternoon. So I'm sure there's going to be a new version of this later on. But you got a 33% chance in New York City and Long Island, anywhere from a 30 to a 50% chance of 40 mile per hour wind gust. And this is a chance to see over 1 inch of rain. So, and you know, this is a graphic from the actual National Weather Service, and they issued this yesterday afternoon. And they finally, you know, were just discussing that, hey, there's a coastal low coming, and if you want to pause that, you can. So, sorry for not reading these graphics word for word, but I don't think there's much point in that when y'all can pause it, y'all can read it. And I don't want to take up, you know, too much of this video if it's not necessary. But let's take this serious, guys. I might do a video tonight just to kind of get you guys some doubled up information, but just been hesitant to do that. But Jerry, let's speak on this really fast. This is the Lesser Antilles. And you would think, man, we got some issues coming, but the actual center of circulation is right into here. And this blow up in pink and white, this is intense convection. So this thing's doesn't look, it doesn't have that look of a tropical system, that cyclonic symmetrical look. But I think it's well on its way to getting there sometime today into tomorrow. But as far as the latest cone, the system itself is down here. Definitely weighted to one side for sure, the southern side, which makes me think they might upgrade tropical storm watches to tropical storm warnings across some of these areas, the Leeward Islands, Guadeloupe, you know, and Antigua and Barbuda. Hopefully I said that right. Anguilla, Saints, Barthélemy. I had all these memorized last hurricane season, but, you know, we haven't had any significant hurricanes go through this area, so I kind of don't have them memorized anymore. But anyways, forecast to become, you know, a stronger tropical storm as it makes its closest pass overnight tonight, and then a hurricane probably by sometime tomorrow. And then Bermuda right here, this thing looks like it's going to head north and then book it back to the east and not bother anybody else except the fish out in the ocean. But that's all I got. You know, I don't have a daily forecast today. Honestly, just run a little bit late on time, guys, and there's not a whole lot going on across the lower 48, to be honest with you. So apologize for any of my daily tuner inners, if you will. Just not a whole lot. There's a lot of cool, dry air dominating the country, so therefore not a lot of weather ongoing. But we are never going to skip our Bible devotion if we have it ready. So this morning we're in Matthew, and it's chapter 26, verse 41. And it says, stay awake and pray so that you won't enter. Man, all right. Stay awake and pray so that you won't enter into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So, you know, Jesus is saying this to his disciples in the garden when they were falling asleep. So if you're familiar with that part of the Bible, big part of the Bible, right? Right before they come and get Jesus, then then you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, that's his disciples are basically falling asleep. They're so tired, they're wore out, and basically their own kind of flesh desires is getting the best of them, and they just can't hang basically. And a very big point when prayer, they're needed to kind of watch out, right? So the thing that stands out to me in this scripture is it says the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak, and that's really what kind of stands out to me. So I'm going to read a couple things here. I said it's important to be aware always on the temptations you are surrounded by. That temptation will lead to sin. Being aware is staying in frequent prayer. Kind of rhymes, right? Being aware is staying in frequent prayer. I'm not saying, if you need to, you need to, but I'm not saying like pray like every minute. But when you feel that temptation come on, say a prayer, right? And talk to God. I mean, he's literally like your best friend right beside you. That's how I view it. Even though he's your father, but he's like someone that you can always talk to, go to in prayer. So it's a form of glorifying God. And I said, our desires as followers are willing, but our flesh is a sense. Our desires as followers are willing, but our flesh in a way has home field advantage as we are living in a world controlled by sin. So what I mean by home field advantage, well, first off, when I say our desires as followers are willing, meaning we are constantly, as followers of Christ, if you're saved, born again believer, then you should always feel almost a nag to do better, to fight off sin. But the flesh has that home field advantage because we are in this world, right? And this world is full of sin, it's full of temptation. So your flesh kind of has that upper hand. And it does until the day you die. So that's why you constantly have to be in prayer. You constantly have to talk to God. You have to work through this temptation. So don't rely on your own strength to fight this battle. Go to God in prayer. Remember 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13, which we had a devotion on this one time too. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. So remember that, guys. And maybe some people don't believe that, but it's true. It is true, guys. So it just goes to show you, don't get so caught up in the flesh. And as always, talking to myself too. And it can disguise itself in many, many, many ways. And in the situation in the Bible, it's just the disciples are just falling asleep, and Jesus needed them to stand on guard. And I think they fell asleep twice. So yeah. Anyways, hope that makes sense. Appreciate y'all. Tomorrow's video will probably drop a little bit earlier. I'm going to the mountains for the day. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there. But outside of that, there ain't really anything else to talk about. Let's take this coastal low serious, guys. I don't think a lot of people are taking it that serious to live along the coast, and maybe it won't be serious. I don't know. We'll figure it out, right? Y'all have a wonderful day. We'll talk again soon. God bless.